All of the Liberals got together in one place for one press conference, and there's a massive mixture of comments and questions that are thrown. A reporter even asked Justin Trudeau, hey, Biden stepped down because he wasn't doing very good and he didn't have a lot of support. Are you going to do the same thing? We're going to be taking a look at that along with Trudeau's answer and many other questions that were asked to other Liberal MPs. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Before we get into it, I do want to encourage everyone to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It does really help grow the channel. Just a gentle reminder that this is indeed the extra channel, and I would really appreciate it if you guys showed this one the same love that you do all the others. Without further ado, let's get into it. So we're starting off with Stephen McKinnon, and he's coming back with a vengeance, saying that he's excited to pretty much provide cheaper cost of living for Canadians, because that's a real thing. Said nobody ever.
The cabinet and obviously very soon the caucus will gather after a very refreshing summer of meeting constituents across the country. And I know that we're talking to a lot of constituents who appreciate a lot of the things that have been put in place: childcare, dental care for seniors. But we also want to make sure that we continue this economic optimism that we're starting to feel in the country, with inflation coming down, with interest rates coming down, and a lot of expansion and investment going on in the country that should give every region of this country a lot of optimism and a lot of things to think about as we go into what's obviously going to be a very highly charged political year. But we stand four square behind the Prime Minister and look forward to, I know, presenting Canadians with the kind of contrast that they're going to be looking for next year.
Right. And so he's not the only one that stands 100% with Justin Trudeau. You also have Crystia Freeland, who will do and say literally anything to keep her job. And we're going to get into that in a few moments. Next up, you have this article here by CTV that says Trudeau insists that he still has what Canadians want despite the polling numbers. We have a video of that in a little bit, but let's hear Justin Trudeau take a question from a reporter who basically says to his face, you should step down. Why aren't you stepping down?
You say that you plan to stay on despite persistently bad polling, despite the by-election loss in Toronto that your party lost for the first time in 3 decades, because you want to continue to deliver. Isn't that what Joe Biden insisted on?
Listen, we are focused on being there for Canadians. We're focused on stepping up on support and investments that are going to leave Canadians better off for the coming years and indeed decades. Canada has built one of the strongest economies in the G7, in the world right now, because we've been there to invest in the middle class and people working hard to join it. We've been delivering on programs that have made a real difference in Canadians' lives. And right now, as people are facing challenges, we are setting the best balance sheet in the G7 to work for Canadians, with $10 a day childcare spaces that allow families to go back to work, that allow people confidence that their kids are going to be well supported on their way into years of schooling. School food programs, dental programs that make a real difference in the daily lives of Canadians. These are things that actually meet the needs of the challenges Canadians are facing right now. And that's what we're focused on delivering right now and into the coming years.
But sir, you just made the Joe Biden argument that his record justifies him staying. The electorate is saying they don't want you. They want change.
Hypocrite.
Personally is worse than your party's.
I spent the summer talking with Canadians, and people's focus is on getting the support they need for their kids, for their future. They want to see a strong future for Canadians. They want to see opportunities for their kids. That's what we're working on every single day to deliver. That's what I'm focused on. That's what I'm excited about. And that's why we're going to go into this next election putting a very clear choice for Canadians. But we're still a year plus away from the election. I'm focused on making sure we're delivering through that election the kinds of things that Canadians need. That's what we're here for.
And you're just not the guy, buddy. You're not the guy. People don't like you. People don't believe you. People don't trust you. Except for this freakazoid right now. You have Crystia Freeland, who is with Trudeau till the end. She's the co-captain. She's going down with the ship.
Seeing some success in the polls, they're now competitive with Donald Trump, whereas before it seemed hopeless. And there's a lot of enthusiasm among party members. Does that give you pause and make you think maybe we should have a leadership swap here in this country to revive the Liberal fortunes?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
All of us here have tremendous confidence in the Prime Minister. We have confidence in him as the leader of our government, as the Prime Minister of Canada, and we have confidence in him as our party's leader, as the guy who is going to lead us into the next election.
She just doesn't want to admit that he's a failure. She will say and do whatever she needs to keep her job. And that also extends to Trudeau's mistress, Mélanie Joly. Let's see what she's got to say when interviewed by the press.
To talk about different issues that are important to Canadians, including, of course, what is happening in the world. We know that a lot of the geopolitical instability is causing a lot of anxiety with Canadians. And also we know that affordability issues are linked to the fact that there are so many supply chains that have been disrupted because there are so many geopolitical tensions. And we saw it again today with what happened in Kyiv and across Ukraine. And of course we condemn these attacks by Russia. And at the same time, we saw it yesterday with the Hezbollah attack on Israel, and Israel standing to protect its own security.
No matter what she says or does, it's never going to be the right thing, because she supports Israel, but also wants to bring in a bunch of asylum seekers from Gaza to a country that stands with Israel. I'm sure nothing bad will happen when those two groups of people meet. It's insane. And then you have this schmuck right here. Immigration Minister Mark Miller accuses Pierre Poilievre of having garbage slogans. Everything is Pierre's fault or Harper's fault. Nothing is the current government's fault. The ones that are making the policies, it's not their fault. It's the slogans from an opposition party. So bizarre.
A summer of listening to your constituents, voters across the country, and even from watching events unfold south of the border in those campaigns. What's your takeaway in terms of your own way forward?
Well, certainly, I think, and I think sometimes we borrow a little too much in our political rhetoric from the U.S. We have our own political dynamic here that is not necessarily readily comparable to the U.S. I know a lot of eyes are focused on the U.S. election. I'll focus a little more on what Canadians are saying. I spoke to the postmaster in an office in his riding the other day, and what she wants to see is a country and a leader with vision, and someone with solutions and not someone with slogans. Anyone can come up with cheap slogans, but people actually have to come up with a vision for the country. We've set Canada on a course coming out of COVID where we have dealt squarely with issues around affordability that no country situated similarly like us has been able to escape, whether that's robust positioning on daycare, whether that's making sure that Canadians can make ends meet with a child benefit. Those are staples of what we have been putting forward. Canadians want to see more of that, and they want to see a prime minister that cares about his country and doesn't spend his time shooting his mouth off. If you look at the opposition in Pierre Poilievre, this is a guy who spent the last 20 years cashing a government of Canada paycheck. What is the one thing that guy's ever done in the one job that he's ever held in the House of Commons? And no one can nail that. He throws out a lot of slogans, but sure, anyone can throw out a slogan. Cut the crap, shut your yap. I could shoot that off all day, but it's not something that I really want to be seen as, but that's how he's seen, as someone that just throws out all this garbage. And that postmaster that I spoke to, she sees through that crap, and she keeps telling me that. And I don't know if she's a liberal or not. I bought some of the farm eggs that she was selling for $5 a crate, but it's kind of neat to see people kind of cluing on to the fact that they want to see more in a leader than just garbage slogans. They want to see concrete actions, and anyone that wants to be the Prime Minister of this country has to have a vision for Canada, and I think the Prime Minister is doing a great job. And
his slogans are so irrelevant and they are so garbage that Justin Trudeau is now regurgitating a lot of those talking points, such as, off the top of my head, Pierre Poilievre wants to turn government buildings that are either being unused or not used, or that are just lightly being used. He wants to turn those into rentals. He also wants to take Crown federal land and sell it off to developers to build more housing. Justin Trudeau has recently come out and says that he wants to also turn government land into housing. So it's absolutely insane. And then you have Pierre Poilievre has been saying for years that the temporary foreign workers program is taking jobs away from Canadian citizens, people that are living here. Our jobs are being taken away by foreigners that are coming in on this temporary workers program. Today, Justin Trudeau has also announced that this is now an issue, even though people have been saying this for years, and Justin Trudeau's comments to those critics are, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're an extremist, blah, blah, blah. Yet now he's found himself doing the exact same thing and saying the exact same thing that Pierre Poilievre has been preaching. So it's kind of bizarre that they're saying that he's all slogans, that Pierre is all slogans, and it needs to stop because he doesn't have any good ideas, when Justin Trudeau has taken two of the very recent ideas that Pierre has been saying and turned them into his own. At least that's how the media is spinning it. Super, super weird. But let's take a look now at this video here by mainstream media and what they have to say about the whole situation.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau facing questions this morning about his political future as he meets with his cabinet in Halifax.
These are things that actually meet the needs of the challenges Canadians are facing right now. And that's what we're focused on delivering right now and into the coming years.
The annual end of summer gathering is taking place against the backdrop of slumping Liberal polling numbers and a stinging by-election defeat in a former Toronto Liberal stronghold. To kick off the gathering, Trudeau announced that his government is imposing a 100% tariff on the import of Chinese-made electric vehicles and a 25% tariff on aluminum and steel from China.
Actors like China have chosen to give themselves an unfair advantage in the global marketplace, compromising the security of our critical industries and displacing dedicated Canadian autos and metal workers. So we're taking action to address that.
All right,
So that's so funny because Justin Trudeau, again, has taken that point of the tariffs on Chinese EVs from Pierre Poilievre.
Let's turn to CTV's chief political correspondent, Vashi Kapelis. She joins me now from the retreat in Halifax. Good morning to you, Vashi. So the Prime Minister spoke to reporters early this morning before sitting down with his cabinet. Before we get to the announcement on the tariffs, can you tell us more about what we heard from Justin Trudeau today?
Well, what we heard is basically the complete opposite of what happened a year ago in Prince Edward Island at that summer cabinet retreat, where the chief criticism of the Liberals and cabinet in particular was that they didn't make any substantive announcements. That was the beginning of the end, basically, when it came to public opinion polling for the Liberals, who have been persistently behind the Conservatives since then. It appears they took heed of a lot of that criticism because they came out, and the Prime Minister specifically came out this morning with a series of very substantial comments, including the announcement that you outlined on Chinese, the import of Chinese electric vehicles, as well as aluminum and steel. But the big headline for me is his comments on immigration. There are changes that they're going to make to the temporary foreign worker program, but he didn't stop there. He did not rule out substantive changes to permanent resident rates, which were set a number of years ago. Last fall, they introduced a 5-year immigration plan, a new immigration plan. He says another one is coming this fall. The fact that the government is looking at changes to the permanent immigration stream in Canada is a hugely significant thing, not for him to rule out. And I think sets the stage for some big changes to come in the fall. Also speaks to the issues, the vulnerabilities they face politically on issues like immigration, on issues like the economy. It's like they're undoing a lot of what they did over the past few years while simultaneously trying to convince Canadians they need to stick around after the next election to get stuff done.
Now, what about these tariffs?
And this is where it becomes extremely disingenuous, because Justin Trudeau has caused these problems and he's criticized anyone who's offered these solutions. And now he's offering the same solutions that he's criticized so heavily over the past several years. That's disingenuous at the maximum level.
And on Chinese EVs, did we see this coming, and what was the Prime Minister's justification?
We did see this coming, very much so. The finance minister announced in July, following the imposition of such tariffs by the U.S. and Europe, that they would review the possibility of acting in concert here in Canada. It's not unexpected at all that they decided to do what they did. There are some potential implications. First, what is China going to do? Are they going to retaliate? They are known to do so clearly. And if they do retaliate, against which sectors or in what way will they? The second consequence is around the targets that the federal government has set for converting basically all sales of vehicles to electric vehicles. They've set targets out a couple of years, 10 years out, 2035. Ultimately, they'll all be gone. All sales are supposed to be electric vehicles by then. To what degree might this, the industry tells us it will, but to what degree will this compromise the ability to meet those targets? Because what you're saying is you're making the cheaper electric vehicles, which understandably China is subsidized. Not understandably, they shouldn't be, but they are. They're subsidizing their vehicles, so they become cheaper here. So you make it harder for Canadians essentially to buy electric vehicles because they're more expensive. But you're fighting back against unfair trade practices by China. What does it do to those targets? Does it mean that the targets have to be pushed out? I remember asking the environment minister that after the decision was made to review these tariffs, the possibility of imposing them came about. He said it would not change them. The industry thinks very differently, so that's something to watch as well.
Okay, and last question then for you, Basheen. You sort of hinted at this. In terms of what's at stake here for the Liberals, we were expecting that there would be a cabinet shuffle a couple of months ago. That hasn't happened. Of course, Seamus O'Regan has stepped aside, but really he is with his people today, the Prime Minister. Did he talk today about his polling numbers and the support for the Liberals right now among Canadians?
Well, he essentially implied to questions about that the Canadians are not concerned about politics or polling numbers, that they're focused on basically what the government can do for them. I think two things can be true at the same time. Certainly Canadians are concerned about their own economic plight, the situation in this country, and what the government is or isn't doing for them. But I think there is also a big conversation happening, particularly since the by-election, Marcia, that you point out, since that result about 6 weeks ago in Toronto, particularly since Joe Biden stepped aside and we have seen the sort of enthusiasm for his replacement and the uptick in public opinion polling for the Democrats as a result. He was the Prime Minister on the receiving end of a number of questions, for example, about, well, what do you take from that? Kind of should if you were to step aside, would it inject life into your party? He insisted that the situation in the United States is different than here. He continues to insist that he is sticking around. No big cabinet shuffle ahead of this cabinet retreat. No real substantive, change communicated out of that by-election loss, despite the fact there were Liberals, caucus members asking for it. Now, the fall may hold something different, but the message that I would glean from what I've heard today and yesterday here is they believe if they keep on keeping on, if they continue putting things on the table for Canadians, that the tide will eventually turn. Whether that's the case remains to be seen.
Bashi, thanks for all that. Good to see.
We're going to have to wait and see how all of this plays out, but it's extremely disingenuous for Trudeau to have caused the problem and then offer to sell the solution coincidentally right before an election. It's a clear tactic, and I just feel sorry for anybody who's falling for this. But you, the viewers, I'm sure you are not falling for this. It's obviously people on the side of the other political spectrum, liberals, radical people that just, should barely even have the ability to vote. If really you're supporting Trudeau at this point, you're just completely insane. But again, I'd love to pass the question off to you. How do you feel about this? What are your takeaways from any of the points that were covered in this video? That's where we're going to end it. On your way out, I'd like to encourage you guys to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.